Welcome. My name is Andy DeLynn. I'm president of the Pennsylvania Republican Leadership Conference. And today we have with us in the studio Chuck McCullough. Good afternoon.
Morning,
Chuck.
Andy. How are you?
Good. Chuck is a former Allegheny County councilman and currently running for Allegheny County Executive. He was the second Allegheny County solicitor under the Home Rule Charter. Lifelong resident of Allegheny County and holds 3 degrees from the University of Pittsburgh, a master's in business administration, a Juris Doctor, and a degree in economics, graduating with honors. He's been married 29 years and is the proud father of 2 children. They reside in Upper St. Clair. Chuck, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you for having me.
Well, Chuck, we're here today because we want to find out a little bit more about you and also about the issues you stand for in this race. The first question, obviously, is a typical question, and that is what motivated you to jump from a position you already had, a part-time councilman position where you can do other things, and now you're going to be running for a full-time Allegheny County executive.
Well, Andy, first of all, it's a natural progression of my commitment to serve the people of Allegheny County. And as I tell people, although we're technically part-time on county council, i.e. we get part-time pay, it's a full-time responsibility. And as county councilman at large, I have responsibility for the health, safety, and welfare of 1.2 million Allegheny County residents. And I believe as county executive, I can fulfill my mission of service to the people.
Okay, great. Well, some people have said that this is a county executive position, which means that it requires more of a chief executive officer than it does of an attorney legislature. How would you answer that?
Well, Andy, first of all, I would say people should take a look at the charter itself. The idea of a county executive is to have a leader. That's the fundamental thing you need for Allegheny County, which is leadership. And you lead by example. You lead by a demonstrated record of public service. The notion that somebody could come from a small, self-employed, private sector job to become county executive without the kind of experience you need in government at a large scale is a mistaken one. And I'd also point out to people that as county solicitor, I was one of the top 3 people in the executive branch of county government, one of 2 direct reports to the chief executive. I was responsible for the legal affairs of over 7,000 county employees, 1.2 million people, and an operating total budgets of $1.5 billion a year.
Okay, so well, let's get a little bit more specific then. You've spent some time now in county council. Recently, the 2010 County Financial Report was just released. It appears that we, like the federal government, have been involved in deficit spending. Is this sustainable, and how would you propose to solve this problem? Raise taxes, cut spending?
Well, first of all, Andy, raising taxes is just not in the equation, especially in this time when we're coming through a very tough recession. And I would point out to people that this is something that I have been raising and red flagging for my 3 years on county council. And actually, I convened a budget summit last fall to try to bring this matter to a head. Obviously, we're going to have to take a look at cuts, but we're also going to have to take a look at fundamentally changing government in Allegheny County. And one of the things I think we need to seize on is getting some money for our large assets that are held in these municipal authorities, specifically Pittsburgh International Airport and Alcosan. We no longer can sustain this bloated authority-based ownership of these assets, which is politically patronage-based. I think it's time to privatize those, and if we do that, that single measure, I think, can right our fiscal ship.
That's not too bad, because one of the things the governor's run into is his budget process that's now ongoing has shown that even though it's fiscally responsible, it's now getting him a problem with the polls. And you have to do this in a way that you continue to get public support.
Yes, and you also have to set an example for people. I tell everyone, part of leadership is you look out for the people you serve, and you don't ask them to make a sacrifice that you're not willing to make yourself. So if we're going to look to be making cuts in county government, we're going to have to. And frankly, we're going to have to go through department by department and see what functions we can privatize. And I have a number that I could go through. But it's really going to start at the top. If you take a look at county government right now, we have very bloated salaries at the top end of the management scale within the county. That's going to cease under my administration.
Okay, good. The next question is Honorado's nemesis, the reassessment process.
Right.
How do you propose to make it really fair and still meet the requirements of the court?
All right. First of all, Andy, I'm fundamentally opposed to the reassessment at this time for 2 reasons. Number one, Honorado is conducting it in an illegal manner. He unilaterally took away the people's right to have an appeal hearing before their new assessments would go into effect. He also awarded an illegal contract to an out-of-state appraisal company. He violated the competitive bidding code in the process. Further, he never gave council any notice of what he was doing. It needs to be stopped, if only to address those issues. Secondly, we're being hurt with this reassessment, periodic reassessment. Our neighboring counties have not done it in several decades. I feel in pursuing very aggressively an action involving the General Assembly, taking it before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court put the General Assembly on notice that if they didn't correct this system, the Supreme Court would with the next lawsuit coming down the line. So it's a two-pronged attack, Andy, to get at this. Ultimately, I think the solution is to have a set schedule of rates that could be adopted by municipalities and taxing bodies countywide, so you would have predictability and get out of the periodic reassessment mode. Frankly, that's something I've already proposed on council.
So some people say by holding off on the reassessment that some of the less advantaged people in the county are paying more, and some of the more advantaged people are paying less, and it's not an equitable system.
Well,
right now.
there's a lot of truth to that, Andy, and that was the underlying problem with this. And I would say, in the meantime, pending resolution of this matter in the courts, they would provide interim relief for those people who own properties in depressed areas and their assessed values have gone down. That's something that's very easily to be done. We know the statistics. We know where we could do that. That would provide interim relief pending a full-scale resolution of this problem.
That's great. Okay, let's move to another issue which the public is totally attached to, and that is the public transportation system.
Right.
You know, as you know, the PATH system has been widely and grossly mismanaged, and it's constantly making cuts, and their fares are all over the place. Have you taken a look at the public transportation system and have any ideas?
I certainly have, Andy, and let me say 3 years ago on council, actually as a member of the county's Budget and Finance Committee, I really broke the news that the Port Authority was going bankrupt. I also pointed out that it has a very bizarre business model, which means the more people they took on as passengers, the more money they lose, hence why they've come back now and cut service. I feel we ought to move very aggressively to restore existing service. I would have taken the money that came from the governor and put it back to restore service in this fiscal year. As county executive, I would have fired the board of directors of the Port Authority. I think the problems with the Port Authority lie with them. I would also replace senior management with county personnel and operate it through a workout situation. Move very aggressively to reopen negotiations with the transit union, move very aggressively to rework debt with other creditors of the Port Authority. If that doesn't work out within this fiscal cycle, I would move to put it into Chapter 9 bankruptcy, which would keep the buses running, keep the services going, but would force a reworking of the debt structure within the Port Authority.
Okay, that sounds good. The thing that hit me, though, is I see these buses running basically empty in some routes. Why hasn't it been the case that they could take one of those smaller vans, run the routes on the off-peak times with smaller vans, less gas, same efficiency, same routes, same service, but a lot less cost? It doesn't seem like that's ever been talked about. They cut the route out, but they actually could have done it a lot less expensive.
Well, Andy, we have posed that question on County Council, and the Port Authority's response, and it's always subject to challenge, is it's actually more economic to have a specific fleet of buses, large though they may be, than to break it down into some of these smaller buses that could only be used for those kind of routes. And I know one of the councilmen, Republican, was actually taking on a day's worth of bus travel and came back with the conclusion that, yes, while it seems to be an inefficient use of resources, in the balance, it's probably all they can do in the short run.
Yeah, well, somebody told me the reason they don't do it is because the unions won't let them. You know anything about that?
Well, the union has some very bizarre work rules, all right, particularly as far as calculating overtime, but I'm not aware of a work rule that really would mandate that level of a bus.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back.
I thought indoor tanning was safe.
They said their tanning rays were less likely to cause a sunburn.
What you need to know is UV light from indoor tanning can cause
premature aging, including wrinkles, sagging, and age spots.
So instead of making you look cool, it can make you look old.
And even worse, UV light can increase your risk of skin cancer, including melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer, especially when exposed at an early age.
And treatment can be surgery, and sometimes even chemotherapy and radiation.
In fact, current estimates are that 1 in 5 Americans develop skin cancer.
And 1 person dies from melanoma about every hour.
I don't want to be one of them.
I don't want to be one of them.
I don't want to be one of them.
This message brought to you by the American Academy of Dermatology.
I'm telling you, indoor tanning is not as safe as you think. In fact,
Indoor tanning is totally out.
Hello? Patty, I've decided to follow your lead and file for Social Security benefits online. But Kath, aren't you back in Zanzibar? I just got on my laptop and went to socialsecurity.gov. It took less than 15 minutes. Wow, you are a miracle worker. Well, cheers, Patty. I'm off to film a baby rhino. Baby rhino?
Okay, we're back with Chuck McCullough, candidate for Allegheny County Executive. Chuck, let's continue our discussion now with another situation that's perturbed a lot of people, and that's the drink tax. Now, I know you've been outspoken on that. And it's something that Anaraw has taken a big hit on because of what he did.
And well deserved.
Okay. So why do you think the drink tax was used as a revenue enhancer in the first place, and how do you propose to replace it and still keep the budget solid?
First of all, the drink tax is a tax on small businesses. And I think it's a fundamentally unfair notion that we're going to tax small businesses ostensibly to use that money to support a bloated transit authority. All right. Honorado clearly was trying to use this, though, to prop up his budget. He attempted to skim off almost $15 million in excess drink tax revenues to support his operating budget. And I actually went into court with some of the restaurant owners. We got an injunction to stop that nonsense. Now, I'm fundamentally against the tax because it is a small business tax. It needs to go away. I'm also fundamentally against the notion of using taxpayer dollars to support the Port Authority. I think as part of the reworking of the Port Authority, and you'll see now that this has now hit the state's radar screen, they recognize that the transit in Pennsylvania is not working as it is presently funded. That has to be off the table. I'm not going to get into a position where we're going to be using taxpayer dollars of any kind to support what is really a state authority. As far as there's other revenue sources, we get $250 million right now in state and federal subsidies for the Port Authority. That's more than enough. And there's nothing that says that the Port Authority cannot generate its own revenues. Under the model that I'm proposing to reform the Port Authority, it should be able to generate some own revenues. There's other revenue sources that would be independent of taxes that wouldn't affect the county budget. For example, gaming revenues. Allegheny County has not yet recognized those gaming revenues. They will be realized. I have no problems whatsoever in turning those over to the Port Authority. There still is the car rental tax. They still have the ability to go before the RAD board and make their case to get RAD monies as well. Bottom line is, Andy, there's ample monies out there to do the Port Authority if its debt is restructured. One of the first things I would do in office would be to eliminate the drink tax.
Well, that's great because it's. I personally have a problem with taxes that tax one small portion of a population just to try to I guess you call them sin taxes. And because you always say one person's sin is somebody else's, something they want to do. I mean, what's your position just on the concept of that kind of target taxation?
Well, Andy, that's how the Republican Party got started. When Thomas Jefferson became president, he repealed the first drink tax. Where do you stop? I mean, what's to say we're not going to tax small software companies to support the Port Authority? I mean, where's the nexus of that? Why don't we just tax physicians to support the Transit Authority? Why don't we do that? It was a strategic move to pick on small business owners in Allegheny County, and it has only added to this stigma that we have in Allegheny County that we are anti-business, anti-small business.
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, that is an image that whoever the next county exec has to change. I mean, we have to be business friendly.
Well, and the first way to do that is send a message out there that if you're going to have a small business in Allegheny County, we're not going to discriminate you by way of a tax like this. The other example I hearken to is W&K Steel. I mean, W&K Steel is a success story for Allegheny County. Right. Small steel fabricator, has endured tough times, has a business in rank in one of the most depressed areas of Allegheny County, a good tax-paying corporation that was defamed by the Democrats on county council because they wanted to make a union shop. We have to break that kind of cycle of business suppression in Allegheny County. Another thing, Andy, I'm concerned about is the loss of our community hospitals. Community hospitals are small businesses, and they're falling prey to the monopolistic behavior of UPMC, which is being subsidized by Allegheny County to the tune of more than $2 billion in low-interest, tax-free county bonds. That kind of behavior has to stop.
Okay. Well, there's another, speaking of trying to streamline and make government more efficient, I worked with Leadership Pittsburgh on what's called a city-county merger. And we were part of the process. We went out and we talked to other cities. We found that some cities have done this effectively, and they're happy with it. Some of the school systems have improved. Some of the other aspects of government have become more efficient, less duplication of services. Where do you stand on the city-county merger, and how do you propose to cut some of this duplication of services?
All right. First of all, I'm fundamentally opposed to the notion of a city-county merger. All right. The notion that we're going to have the taxpayers of Allegheny County assume the problems of the city of Pittsburgh is not one I'm willing to accept. I also, Andy, as a part of federalism, I'm a very strong proponent in local government. And I reject the notion that we could coalesce the city of Pittsburgh and the suburban communities into one region-wide Allegheny County government. I've seen Allegheny County government. I know it's inefficient. I know it's ineffective. I know the mistakes of coalescing power behind an elected chief executive such as Mr. Honorado, who became the single most powerful political figure in Allegheny County and has used that to produce significant harm to this region. Take a look at what's happened to Pittsburgh International Airport. Take a look at what's happened to the small business owners who were taxed by the drink tax. Look to the anti-business climate we have in this region, the anti-family value climate that we have in this region. This is all the result of coalescing power behind one elected official who really has had his way with the county for the last 7.5 years.
Well, the idea of the county exec, the whole point of this to replace the commissioner system was to have a strong council that would be able to actually do this, an executive being, so to speak, the oversight. Not the one that's supposed to be the dictator.
That's correct. I mean, the notion was, and again, as the second county solicitor under home rule, it was to really replicate what we have at the federal and state level. Separation of powers, more power back to the people, the essence of home rule. We were going to restore it to the people through a representative legislature with a leader, but a leader obviously subject to oversight. That hasn't happened here. We've had a guy, frankly, until I came along, that really had his way with both sides of the aisle. And I believe I've been the one person on county government that has stood up to this fella, represented the rights of the people, taking him to court over the drink tax when he used excess monies, when he tried to come up with a really wild referendum that would have automatically raised property taxes if the drink tax were cut. And I litigated that all the way to the Supreme Court and beat him there. I stood up to him and UPMC on behalf of the people in Braddock to fight the closure of the hospital. I stopped a illegal $80 million WHAM fund that he had set up. $80 million in state gaming revenues, Andy, that he and 3 Democratic state senators had put into a private corporation that they controlled. Violates Article 3, Section 31 of the state constitution, and I alone put a stop to that.
Well, that's great. As a short time in this segment we have left, the county airport, Honorado was big about that, and there's been a lot of flurry about that, but nothing's been done. Any comment that you can make about what your plans are for the county airport? I
would move very rapidly to privatize this, and I point out, even a Democratic bastion like the city of Chicago, its city council voted unanimously, 49-0, to explore privatization of Midway Airport, a second-class airport compared to Allegheny County. Andy, I believe we could net enough money out of the privatization of that airport and the development rights and Marcellus Shale rights to not only sustain our budget for a generation, but to provide at least $1 billion to $1.5 billion in a capital reserve fund to take care of our infrastructure needs for a generation.
We're out of time in this segment. Why don't we pick that up in the next segment?
Look forward to it.
You've probably seen this before. Hide and seek? No, sort of. Kids will often withdraw when their needs aren't being met. I know. It would be easier if they just walked up and said, "Hey, I'm feeling like I need a little one-on-one time." But kids have their own language, and it's up to us parents to learn it. Once you figure out how to speak your kid's language, well, you don't really have to say much at all. A thought from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hi, my name is Sarah.
And I'm Denise, and we're here at the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society.
We are here to tell you about our Girl Scout Gold Word project.
As you can see, these animals are very lovable, but there's a problem here at the Humane Society.
They do not have enough wet food to give to their animals.
And that's where you guys come in.
We are asking for your help through a generous donation to the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society. At this time, we have collected over 1,000 cans and donated them to the Humane Society, but they still need more. These animals need their food so they can continue to have healthy, full lives before they are adopted out to a loving home.
Another way you can help out is by adopting an animal from the shelter.
Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope that you have the consideration to remember the animals at the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society.
My father spent his last teenage birthday in a rain of fire. I will not die here, he said to himself. 50 years later, he whispered the same thing to me from the hospital bed.
Hospice provides the end-of-life care you and your loved ones want and need. It's available to everyone.
With the help of the people at our local hospice, he got his wish. And so do we.
Hospice care. Comfort and compassion when it's needed most.
Okay, we're back with Chuck McCullough, candidate for Allegheny County Executive. I'm Andy DeLynn, president of the Republican Leadership Council. And Chuck, we've been discussing some things about trying to save the county money.
Right.
And one of the ways that was discussed was the city-county merger, which you indicated that you didn't like. But there's still a question of consolidation of services. And the question comes up, is consolidation going to really save the money that we're looking to save? How would you respond to that?
At the county level, Andy, no. All right. What I tell people is the efforts we've had between the county and the city of Pittsburgh haven't saved Allegheny County taxpayers a dime. Actually, they probably stressed our budget because we're picking up inefficiencies from the city of Pittsburgh. The 911 system, for example, has been a loser for the city of Pittsburgh, or for the county. This new shared financial services thing is going to be a loser for the county as well. I much prefer the route of looking at what can be privatized. If we want to save money for the people in Allegheny County, let's start looking at privatizing non-essential county services.
The problem with privatizing that I see in a couple of ways is when you start to privatize, you bring in the unions. How would you answer that?
Well, first of all, Andy, there's several, you're going to do this by contract. And as county executive, you have powers under the Home Rule Charter, one of which is remedial action. When you're in a fiscal crisis, which we are now, that you can take unilateral remedial action. I think we ought to be going right down the line. One of the big things that hits my radar screen are the Kane hospitals. These hospitals are underutilized. We're losing between $8 and $10 million a year on operating the Kane hospitals. There's no reason why we should not look into privatizing these. That doesn't mean people are going to lose their jobs. What I tell people is, if you want to keep your job as a county employee, you have a much better chance of keeping it with a sustainable economic model, the one that it's going to lead to the road of fiscal problems that we have now. You can build in contract rights so that people's jobs, when these are privatized, are assumed by the private company. We can start taking a look at privatizing some of the services we provide at the parks, golf course operations, ski lifts. We can take a look at timbering at the parks. And of course, we need to take a look at Marcellus Shale drilling as well.
Okay, so we take a look at, and I want to get back to Marcellus Shale for a second, but we take a look at privatizing Kane hospitals. What are they not doing now that they would do as a private hospital?
Well, first of all, they'd utilize more of the beds. We have a very low occupancy rate. And actually, I was giving a talk yesterday where the issue came up that there are seniors in Allegheny County that need temporary but emergency housing. They're not hospital patients, but they need some place to go. They need some immediate shelter, yet they cannot get into the Kane hospitals because of all the red tape there. Mm-hmm. So we have wards of hospital beds unused at the Canes, and here is an outreach that should be available for people, but they cannot be done. The private sector would be able to take care of that. I think of a county even like McCain County, and I've actually studied their situation, where they privatized their county hospitals, and it was a win-win for everybody.
Okay, well, that sounds good. But you also brought up Marcellus Shale, which obviously is a hot button right now.
Right.
If we look at Marcellus Shale, and the governor has been asked to tax it, he's kind of refused right now. Hopefully, continue, because it is kind of a boon to our area. How is Marcellus Shale affecting Allegheny County? I thought this was far away from us.
Well, actually, the largest Marcellus Shale deposits, Andy, are out of Pittsburgh International Airport and in the county parks. Those are probably the two biggest areas where we have really viable Marcellus Shale drilling possibilities. First of all, I want everybody to understand the way the law is right now, Allegheny County does not have the right or the power to impose any kind of an extraction tax. We simply don't have that power under state law. Nor do we have the power to issue any regulations. Does that mean this is going to be not regulated? No. But then this goes back to why I think the idea of a number of local municipalities is a good one. Local municipalities can regulate Marcellus Shale drilling through their zoning codes. And what it actually does is that promotes competition. Each community is going to get an opportunity to look at this issue as it comes before them. Local residents are going to be able to reach out and get involved with their own local governments to decide how they're going to do this. Through your zoning code, you can regulate the drilling. You can impose an impact fee if it's going to do damage to the environment or your infrastructure. But you keep the middleman, Allegheny County, out of that. We do not need an extra layer of government intrusion here.
Plus, if Marcellus Shale hires all these people, Allegheny County is going to get the tax money.
Absolutely.
In any case, from the property tax, from the income, and so forth.
Absolutely. You know, they're going to come in and they're going to pay taxes, they're going to spend money, they're going to help build up the economy. Again, this is an opportunity to reverse the stigma that this county has as being anti-business. Right. There's plenty of safeguards out there through state law and local regulation to take care of environmental issues, but by keeping the county out of this and inviting this business into the region, again, I think we have a tremendous opportunity to really take Allegheny County to the proper fiscal level that it needs to be.
Rural office consolidation has always been touted as a way to save money in the county, and all kinds of elected officials have proposed all kinds of methods to consolidate. And it seems like we did finally consolidate offices, but the question is, did we really save any money? And what I'm saying is as follows. The treasurer's still elected. He's making $66,000 a year approximately. But the other offices that have now been appointed, supposed consolidation, their salaries have gone through the roof. How would you handle that?
Andy, that's an absolutely excellent observation. What I've told everybody is all consolidation is done in Allegheny County is call less power under Dan Honorato, which is why I was for it. The treasurer, you're right, makes $66,000 a year, but the Honorato appointed medical examiner makes $185,000 a year. The former recorder of deeds, who made $66,000 a year, is now the manager of deeds, making $92,000 a year. The director of Department of Court Records, which was really the former prothonotary, $98,000 a year plus an assistant. You can go down the line. Every one of these resulted in big pay raises. As county executive, I would scale back those pays to the pre-consolidation level, and I would also challenge the notion that we now need this extra layer of bureaucracy, which consolidation has really brought to county government.
Do you have the ability to do that?
Yes, you do. As county executive, you make these appointments. These salaries are not fixed by statute. And in keeping with my earlier comments that I think cost cutting needs to start at the top, which is not something, unfortunately, we're seeing at the state level. I would expect senior management in Allegheny County to reinstitute the pays at the pre-consolidation levels.
So has anybody done an analysis now to see that the actual row office consolidation has dollar-wise been a savings?
Well, the county controller did an analysis where he said that if everything were implemented properly, which included elimination of certain job positions, there would be a potential savings of $1 million, but that has not been realized.
It's not been realized. Well, that's about all the time we have today. Chuck, I want to thank Chuck McCullough, candidate for Allegheny County Executive, for being with us today on the program.
Andy, thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
I've always appreciated the American Legion.
My gratitude to the American Legion.
Thank you all of the American Legion.
Well, we have millions of veterans that are members of our organization. Thank you.
The American Legion, celebrating a legacy of service to America. Find out more at legion.org.
This looks like hide and seek, but it's not. Kids often withdraw when their needs aren't being met. It would be easier if they said, I need a little one-on-one time. But it's up to us, their parents, to learn their language. And once you figure it out, you don't really have to say much at all. A thought from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.